As part of the 70th anniversary celebrations of KNUST, Life School presents a special series with KNUST alumni to learn from their life experiences and share their special fun moments from Tech Campus. Join us to share our fun moments and learn from each other. Life School, sharing skills and lessons for life.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Michelle Divier, and with me today we have technocrat engineer Kwabena Agyepong in today's Life School series. You're welcome, sir.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you, and I hope you're going to have an enjoyable evening together.
Definitely. Okay, so sir, please can you tell us a little bit about your personal life?
Oh, that's a deep question. My life is very multi-layered, but I can say I'm a civil engineer.
Okay.
I've also been a sports broadcaster before, a politician.
All right.
And many other aspects. I was born to lawyer Agyei Agyepong. Later became Justice Agyepong. My mother was Margaret Agyepong, both of them from Ashanti. I started my schooling in Kumasi at the Royal International School.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm a proper crew from Kumasi boy.
Wow.
Then common entrance at Royal International. I happened to be a bit intelligent in those days. I taught. In those days, went to Infancy Film School in Cape Coast.
Okay.
Spent 7 years. Those days you go to school at 12, so you were very young.
Okay.
You know, it was very exciting. That's why I did my O levels, where there too I was able to have a distinction in Form 5. Did my sixth form at the same place. Later became the library prefect.
Okay.
And then after the A levels, civil engineering at Tech. We used to call it Tech. These days I hear it's KNUST, but I'm used to saying Tech. So in a nutshell, started work at Ghana Highway Authority after my national service. Was there for a considerable amount of time. And then together with a colleague of mine who was also a technocrat, we co-founded Constru Consult, which is a private engineering services provider. And of course, by 2000, politics had sucked me away. So 2001, I had to leave my work as an engineering consultant to become press secretary to President Kufuor.
Okay.
That was about for 6 years. And after that, came back as an independent engineering consultant, set up my own private firm called Senwat. And in 2014, I was sucked in back again as General Secretary of the NPP, massively elected at a Tamale conference. Unfortunately, my tenure didn't last too long, about 2 years. And then I'm back now as a member of the National Executive Committee of the party after the suspension. So I've had a really exciting life. I'm married with 3 children.
Right.
So that's what I can say in a nutshell, unless you want to have some more details about myself.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just break your life into bits and then ask you a few questions about them. Okay, so I'll go straight to your life in KNUST.
In KNUST?
Yes.
The way you say you're going to break my life, I'm getting scared already.
No. Okay, so you studied civil engineering. Was it something you wanted to do from infancy?
That's right. I mean, in infancy, in sixth form, when you do maths, you know, you have the science class, so those who want to be doctors will be in the science class, maths, mostly engineering or medicine. So some of my colleagues ended up as doctors, but most of them came to Tech as civil engineers. I remember our seniors, you know, when they came back for the speech day, and you see them and says, I'm doing chemical engineering, I'm doing civil engineering, it inspired us.
Yeah.
And so we always felt we're going to do civil. And so I was very happy to be able to start the course in Tech.
All right. Okay. So did you face any challenges? Did you have any regrets while doing the course?
Not the course itself. I mean, Tech was exciting. I believe the 4 years on the Tech campus. It was 5 years because of demonstrations and school being suspended for almost a year in 1982-83 after the revolution.
Okay.
But although it was a time of personal tragic loss, that's when I lost my dad when I was in first year, June 30th. But
when you were in first year?
Yes, I was 20 years when my father, lost his life. I'm sure everybody knows about this. This year is going to be 40 years since I lost my dad. And I would say that just being at Tech with my friends and the course did a lot to help me focus, because that was a very difficult time in my life. But I would say that the course was tough. We had some very tough lecturers.
Okay.
And engineering is like a math school, and those were very difficult times. But the social life on campus was hilarious, and we enjoyed it, whilst trying to combine it with our studies. And against the background of my personal loss, it was a very, very tough time. But it helped build me as a person. Became mentally very tough, so I think it's very important to have emotional stability. And I think being on campus the way Tech was at the time, in those days you didn't need a lot of money to survive, because we had something we call Bangla. They'll give you something to feed on. You have lunch, breakfast. All the coupons we used to call the Bangla coupons.
Were they for free?
Yes, for free. In those days, you could even have tea at the academic site. But our seniors were telling us more that we had missed. So you can imagine what is happening today. So
then we have missed a lot, because
you haven't seen it
at all.
I think our generation, and again I say so because I believe our generation is perhaps the luckiest generation, because we have transitioned from the technological advancements that we've seen in the last 20 years. And of course, being an engineer, I enjoy this, because in our time, we were the generation that saw black and white television. I'm sure you haven't seen it before. And now we have all these flat screens and all that. But on campus in those days, everybody used to eat in the dining room. Hardly would you find people selling around. A few spots like behind Katanga and behind Unity Hall, the very popular Red, that we all would go and eat.
Go there.
Yeah. So it was Tech was superb, especially at the weekends when we have parties at Queens, and getting into the evening to dress up and go to Africa Hall. And now these days I'm hearing that my hall, Independence Hall, is a mixed hall.
Yeah, it is.
It must be some trauma.
During your time, it was a single sex hall.
There's only Africa Hall and Queens Annex in our time. Africa Hall and Queens Annex. All halls were male halls. So when you dress up and you're heading towards Queens, or you're heading towards Africa Hall, everybody knows that, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
You're going to try and deliver some rap, And it was exciting and interesting. But of course, the course was tough. When you are an engineering student, some of the lecturers were really hard on us. And having to go to the lab, do experiments, especially in the final year, my project was so difficult. I had to take readings in the lab, sometimes at dawn, because it was a consolidation graph I was trying to draw. It was a log time graph. And so sometimes you have to go to the lab at 2 a.m. to be able to pick the settlement that your specimen has endured. So, but I can say that Tech was a lovely place, but more for the social stuff, I would say that.
All right. Okay, so since you mentioned social stuff, so we have something we call grabbing status.
Oh, October Rush. Is that what you're talking about?
No, that's different.
That's different?
Yeah, grabbing status. I want to know your grabbing status when you were completing. Were you single?
Well,
did you grab
in
someone?
those days we didn't use those words. The lexicon has changed. In those days we used to have a club on campus. It's called Club B.
Okay.
I don't know whether it's still there, but Club B, we used to go and have a lot of Guinness, and then when you have your table and there's got lots of bottles of Guinness, then you are the main man, So of course, October rush, so you chase one or two, So by the time I was leaving, by final year, I had a girlfriend who had just come in first year. So in the final year, we used to sleep alone, so we had a single room, Independence Hall. Room 62 annex.
That's right.
That's right. So I was there alone, so your girlfriend can come and spend the night there. So that was very different. So now I hear they sleep with 4.
That's
more than that.
Yeah.
So that is some of the things that the world has to deal with because the explosion in population, and
Okay. So you also mentioned something about emotional stability.
Yes, I was talking about the fact that having lost my dad in first year, at the end of first year, it was tough.
Yeah.
Fortunately, in those days, you didn't have to pay a lot.
Okay.
But just concentrating on your books, being able to learn, at the time, it's a difficult course.
Okay.
But a lot of the lecturers were very calming influence on me. I can't remember Professor Andam, he was then Dr. Andam, Dr. Kankam, Dr. Nyamiche, and they used to give me nice words of comfort and advise me to be strong, and it helped a lot in the development of my natural psyche, and I became mentally tough. I knew that my dad would want to see me complete, although he wanted me to do medicine, and I disappointed him by not doing medicine. It's something he never forgave me. So tech was really lovely. I wasn't good at swimming, so when we go to the pool, we just go in there to go and have a look at the beautiful things that came around in those days. Because as a kid living in Kumasi, I used to walk from Krofrom. If you know, those who know Kumasi, it's very far from tech. As kids, I'm sure must have been 10 years or 9 or 8 years, who go to the pool. It was the only pool in Kumasi at the time.
Okay.
So we walk and just go and experience it. And it's all part of the reason why I felt eventually I have to be at tech, So, and the beauty of the buildings at that time, these were some of the tallest buildings you see in Ghana. The 8 or 9 floors, and it was nice.
Okay, all right. So, what advice would you give to the young ones who are still in school, who are going through all the emotional traumas?
Well, I think today's world is very different. The younger generation, the exposure that you have to social media, the internet, like I said, our generation, we lived through those times when there were no telephones.
Okay.
So I'm sure today's children would wonder how we were able to live without a telephone. And I quite remember the only television on campus was in the JCR. Okay, so when there's a football match, those of us who love football would then go and watch it. So the exposure to the outside world was not as much as now.
Okay.
My worry is that the younger generation, not only those on campus, but even generally, they are becoming too much influenced by what they see on video shows, television sets. So now, today if you see 10 guys walking on campus, some with strange haircuts, sometimes even with earrings. I'm a bit conservative when it comes to those things. So I think the younger generation need more support.
Okay.
Because they are being bombarded with a lot of stuff.
That's true.
Instagram and all the things that in today's world, you see the young people, even when they are eating, they want to film it and show it to their friends. I don't understand why they do that. In our time, it wasn't like that. And so that peer pressure that you have to do things because your friends are doing it. I know that today, during birthdays, the young ladies, they want to go and do what they call a photo shoot. It was never. It wasn't in our time, there was nothing like that. And it means that you need to find a photographer, you need to stress and all that. That's putting unnecessary financial burden and pressure on yourself. And it's driving some of the younger people to do things that they should not be doing. So I think on campus, I want to advise them to focus on why they are there. You're there to study, of course. The interpersonal relations are good. It builds you, makes you a more rounded human being, prepares you for life. It's not all about putting your head down in the books. That's how come we engineers, I remember there was one lecturer who said to the social science students, don't dress like an engineering student. We took offense at that because we, the engineering students, were bookish and, not supposed to have a lot of social skills. But I think that to have a rounded personality, you have to engage in other forms of activity on campus, but focus on what you're supposed to do. I just saw a story in the papers that about 6,000 students have been, is it deferred or something?
Deferred, yes.
Because of issues.
Yeah.
Some are doing Uber and
they
using
use
their
their school fees
for other things. I think they should not rush to grow up. You eventually grow up and then you want to become younger. So when you're a kid, and these days everybody has a beard. I don't have a beard at all because I want to be as young as I can. But the younger ones, they want to be mature early.
Sometimes it's the desire to make money first.
But that's why that should never be a focus. It's one area that we have to change as a country, as a people. In times past in our time, people had pride in their profession and what they were doing. It had nothing to do with materialism. What is the rush to make money? What do you need the money for? We should create a society where everybody has some basic needs, can cater for themselves. Create a society that will allow all of us to realize our God-given potential. But this mad rush for money, for materialism, I think it's something that is un-Ghanaian and it is affecting all facets of our life, and it's something that as political leaders we should imbibe in the younger generation. There's more in service to society. We have to view our collective security, our collective goodwill, and think in a more collective way. That matters for society. There's too much individualism, and perhaps the politicians are to blame. We have to up our game and change that narrative. I see a lot of young students on campus belonging to the various student wings of political parties, and I ask a few of them, what is your drive? What is your motivation for doing this? And unfortunately, a lot of them think it's the quickest route to
enter into this.
That shouldn't be. In our time, as young people on campus, that was not our dream. Our dream was to serve society. Our dream was to work hard. And then when the opportunity comes for you to serve in government or something else, but you should develop a career for yourself. I think it's important for them to focus on a career and know that you have a career that you have satisfaction with. It gives you satisfaction, it gives you respect, inner happiness, and have a certain spirit of contentment. It's very important. Money won't buy you happiness. So I cannot believe for the life of me that as a student you do the kinds of things that I'm hearing. Of course, I knew there were a few guys who were business minded in our time, that they will organize a film, for instance. Go and get a film from town, show it at Great Hall, and people will go and purchase and go and watch it, and they'll make a little profit. And those are nice. Everybody should have some entrepreneurial spirit, which is good. But when that happens to the demise of your main focus, which is your education, then that is serious. So my little advice to them is that money can't buy you happiness. You should build inner contentment, and it should be spiritual. People should be spiritual. I'm a very spiritual being.
Did you belong to any denomination?
On campus, I've always been a Methodist. You go to fancy Supreme School. Although I was born a Catholic, my mother was a Catholic. So as a kid, we used to go to Roman Hill, the cathedral there. But you go to fancy Supreme. My father was a Methodist. and I've become a Methodist. I'm a member of the Methodist Men's Fellowship.
Right.
Yes. I worship at Mount Sinai, Kwabena. So in the Kwabena circuit. So I think we should. There's more to life than just money, and that's the way. Whatever opportunity I have talking to younger people, they should have principles. And I operate on three things: service, sacrifice, and selflessness. And if you have those character traits and those values, you tend to think more about the other person. You don't become too individualistic. The grabbing that you're talking about, you don't like to grab everything for yourself. So for the younger generation, my advice to them, for you to live a fulfilled life and to be very happy, you need to be grounded in principles. And these are the principles. Having empathy for the other person, especially the less privileged. Maybe because of my background, because I went through from being, in quotes, a dadaba, a judge's son. When I lost my dad, I had to really struggle through school. So I know how it is to be without anything.
Okay.
And so I think that all of us have to have the feel to support one another. And once we do so, the drive for materialism will be reduced. And we'll have a much better Ghana, a much better society for all of us.
Okay, so moving on, I heard you have an obsession with sports.
Yes. I mean, that is something that started from childhood, from my very youthful days in Kumasi, where I was born, in Krofrom, where we used to run around with, I was a street kid, I was a hard boy, as a young boy, go to all the coal centers in Kumasi, Swami, Ahimfie, Krofrom, watch people play football. Strangely enough, I wasn't much of a player myself, but I loved watching it. And I took that to campus. On campus, I was the coach of Independence Hall.
I see.
Yes, I was a coach. And I was also one of the referees in those days. We had a way of refereeing matches. And I remember one very funny incident happened when Unity were playing Katanga. Always a problem between Unity and Katanga. And I was the referee. And I heard all sorts of rumors before the game, and some of the Katangese players were my mates at Infansipim. The striker was my mate, and he was very good. He was one of our top players in Infansipim, and he was playing for Katanga. And I think I awarded an offside decision against him. He was unhappy, so he hit the ball against me. So I showed him a yellow card. Those days, I think it was the first time they had seen some of us, on campus take out a yellow card. So I warned him, naughty. We used to call him Sue, naughty. And then they misbehaved again. Okay. And then I sent him off.
All right.
And the Katangus, they had, aggregated, trying to come and attack me. One of them was Kofi Mwache, who was now a policeman. So when they came towards me, hardly did they know that I had a little pocket knife, and I released the knife and he ran off. Every time he sees me, he says, referee Kokosa. He was also on campus. I think he was 1 year my junior at the time, Kofi. Yes, he was in Katanga. And people thought that I was doing so that Independence will win the competition. But Unity won. They were top footballers, at the time. And in those days, there were other things we used to do. I was was it Circle 48, the Asante Kotoko Supporters Union on campus. I was in charge at the time. And in those early days, we would organize our members to go and man the gates at the Kumasi Sports Stadium. At that time, the current Mampohene was the registrar. He used to be called Saint Jimakesi. And he would call me, alert me, and then they'll bring a bus, and then I'll mobilize all our friends, including the current CEO of Volta River Authority, and Chidaka. So I'll distribute them to the gates in Kumasi Sports Stadium, those days, Yabewa was the chairman, and Jemfi, Larson, Alan Jima, that administration of Asante Kotoko in the early 1980s. And I quite remember, I think I have that in my memoirs, the memorabilia on campus, when I grouped them all in front of Independence Hall. We'll have our breakfast, and we'll go to the stadium in the morning, man the gates, and anytime the tech students were manning the gates, that's when the Kotoko administration will come and report the highest amount of money, because we will make sure that nobody will go through without paying. To a certain extent, that some of the supporters unions do try and come and see me and say, can we negotiate and have one gate for us? I said, no way, we won't do that. So those were very interesting times. I quite remember also in 1982 when Kotoko lost to El Hali in Kumasi, the African champions final match. We walked back. We were so sad, crestfallen. All of us walked up. Akwesiniama, who used to be deputy director of urban roads, Peter Sumedu, who was also my colleague, civil engineer, and he's now at the infrastructure secretarial ECOWAS in Abuja. We were all students, and we were so sad. Coach EKB Kwache, we walked back from Kumasi Stadium through Elijah, right through back to campus on foot. When you're young, so all these things. Apart from that, we also organized sporting events. The first time we put together a boxing show on campus. We had a boxing night, and it was something we used to do at Mfansipim. So if you have any arguments with people, we'll tell you, wait, when there's boxing night, go and enlist, and then you can have a fight. And it was something we used to enjoy back in Kwabuche in those days, and we tried to export it to tech, and we had one very beautiful night. We hosted it in Independence Hall. At that time, Papa Pencil, who also an Fancyman boy, was also at Tech, and a very close friend of mine. His father was the regional sports director, the National Sports Council. So they gave us a professional ring and everything. So we staged the boxing tournaments in Independence Hall. So it was really nice. So as for football, sports in general, I participated a bit, ran the 100 meters for Independence Hall. One of these inter-halls competition, I didn't do too well, But those days you had some national athletes on campus as well. And they were very good. Bodeban, who is a doctor now, was one of the fastest sprinters in the country. He was from Adisado College, and he was Independence Hall as well. So tech, we used to have very lively sporting sessions, and I'm hoping that by now the inter-university games should be more lively, because now there are more universities. In those days there were only three of us. Kivas, Legon, and Tech. Now there are quite a number of universities in Ghana, so I would be expecting that university sports should pick up. It should become a production line for the national sporting teams like basketball, tennis, hockey, and for instance, Ben Asante, Dr. Asante, who's the CEO of Ghana Gas, he was a beautiful hockey player and a football player as well. So our time on campus was really rich.
So previously you mentioned that your course was very, should I say, difficult?
Well, engineering is tough because of the mathematics, the practicals, and the things that
you were involved in all these sports activities. So how did you balance?
You have to manage. You have to manage. You have to manage. That's why I said there's a social side of being on campus. There's a way you have to manage, and because you can't just concentrate only on your books. There were some very tough subjects. I think geodetic, we're doing land surveying. Mr. Crunchy, who was our lecturer at the time, and all of us were in big trouble. Everybody had a C or something like that. We were lucky not to own that. In those days, now we have modern surveying instruments. In those days, we were throwing chains. You know what we call chainage? Proper chain. Yes. That's what we're using now. We have a lot of laser instruments for surveying and all that. So surveying is much, much easier now to do than in our time. So when you hear an engineer or surveyor talk about chainage, it's like a postmark, determining, showing how far you've gone. No, chainage is 1 kilometer, chainage 2 kilometers, that kind of thing. We used to walk it and throw the chain itself, and so those were the crude things that we had to endure in our time on campus.
Okay, all right, okay, sure. So let's move on to your political life.
Oh.
Yes. So I read that there were some suspensions in there.
Yes, I talked about that.
Yes.
That was quite recently, but my political life started much earlier. On campus, really.
Okay.
It's after the December 1981 coup. We were on campus.
Okay.
And at that time, the NUCS, the National Student of Ghana, National Union of Ghana Students, was a very political organization coming from the 70s, the struggle against the Champions regime, and the likes of Duadonting, who had become president of NUCS. So student political activity was heightened, and the students were part of the struggle to fight off military dictatorship. But of course, on campus, the leftists, the socialists, they were more dedicated to campus politics than the liberals, And so the NUCS leadership was always dominated by these leftists. And when Rawlings launched the revolution of 1981, at that time I think Robert Gardner was the NUCS president. They were all leftists, and in those days there were 3 universities, and the NUCS leadership used to rotate. So I think Gardner was in Kibas or Legon, I'm not sure, but it was coming to Tech during our time. That's when we had been sent home to go and carry cocoa, as part of our contribution to the revolution. Some of us were very disillusioned and unhappy with that. So, and schools, universities were closed for over a year. And in the struggle to come back, that's when we all got involved in the politics. We said, look, we need to remove these NUCS leaders who have virtually mortgaged the student generation to the revolutionaries. And so we started fighting for a new leadership, and it was coming to Tech. And that's when Damboche became secretary, Hans Jabba also became a treasurer, and then Amwalabi, he became the president of NUCS. Strangely, he never got involved in politics, mainstream politics, but he became the president of NUCS at the time, and all of us were part of the grassroots movements to fight and remove the socialists from power. There was a guy from Legon, Neil Brown, and the rest who were pro-PNDC. You understand? So that really was the beginning. And of course, my own personal loss that I had suffered traumatically. And I felt that, look, if there was any contribution I have to make to society, I have to do what I can to ensure that we return this country from military dictatorship to democratic constitutional rule. So as a young civil engineer working at Ghana Highway Authority, it was a risk because at that time we were under military rule. We hadn't transitioned into civilian administration. But to be a part of the New Patriotic Party in 1992, I was the face on national television campaigning for Professor Dubois. It took some doing. If you were not courageous, you're not prepared to sacrifice, you can't do it. Because you're a public service worker, and you're working with at that time it was a head of state who was a military leader, and you can come on national television and campaign that we should remove this military leader. That was tough. It was tough, but I was prepared to sacrifice and do my bit to bring Ghana where we are today. So that really got me involved in the politics of the NPP at the very beginning. The likes of B.J. Darocha, Koman Petu, G.B. Uku, and many of the leaders who really sacrificed for this party. At the time, a lot of people had really lost their jobs, they had run into exile, the likes of J.H. Mensah and many others. Some people even died in exile. So we as young students, we felt that, look, we should do our bit to fight for democracy and constitutional rule. And that really was the anchor that drew me into politics. Okay, so of course from 92 through 96 to 2000, and President Kufuor became the president and made me his press secretary for 6 years. You know, and so as you can see, that's one of my press briefings.
Okay.
You know, so as press secretary to the president, you are the mouthpiece of the presidency, and that was a very onerous responsibility.
All right. Okay. So once you've mentioned the pictures, you might as well tell us a bit about each of them.
Well, like I said, this is one of my castle briefings.
Okay.
We used to meet the press as press secretary once a week.
Okay.
To highlight on the president's activities and take questions from the media, as they say, take heat for the president, you know, and explain other governmental issues to the media. And that was the time that the media was getting a bit more vibrant. In times past, there was only Ghana Broadcasting Corporation in the early 80s. So only in the 90s, I think Joy FM was not the first. The first was Radio I, which was closed down by the military establishment. You know, Radio I was the first private radio station that I think they went to on air without authority. But people tried to, you know, brave the storm and do the right thing. They led the action that today we are benefiting with the multiplicity of radio stations and television stations. It wasn't the norm. That's why I said earlier, our generation is perhaps the luckiest generation. The things that our children didn't see, we went through. The things that our fathers didn't live to see, we are now seeing. So we have straddled the whole technological envelope, you know, because the world has changed over the last 20 years significantly. You know, so that I became press secretary for 6 years, and in 2007 I also ran as the youngest of the 17 aspirants from the MPP, tried to be the flag bearer. I was then 45, you know, so then, as you said, in 2014, as I indicated, I was massively elected in Tamale. Unfortunately, my period was curtailed under a slew of propaganda and unfortunate incidents, and I had to leave office unceremoniously. But God being so good, I took it in my stride. I keep saying that what the experiences I've been through life have strengthened me, both because I'm very spiritual and I'm always well-intentioned. And when you have clean motives, pure motives, you have a clean heart, you never demoralize when things like that happen to you. So they say that in life, it's not the fall, it's how you get up from the fall that matters. You understand? So I want to encourage young people who have to believe in what you believe in, have some principles, believe in what is good for the society. And I think when we have a wonderful environment for all of us will benefit.
Okay, all right. So now to the main matters. KNUST will be 70 years soon. We'll be having our 70th anniversary. And then there are a series of activities that will go on during the anniversary. Yes, so which of these activities?
Well, the lunch was done last year. So I think it's a year-long celebration of our 70 years. And the National Alumni leadership have, in conjunction with the management of the university, already lined up a lot of activities. Some have already been done. But I'm looking forward especially to the night with the captains of industry. There are a lot of KNUST folk who are heading major organizations around, especially if you look at the power sector. A lot of big CEOs are all technocrats. So I'm looking to the night that we can all get together to reminisce on what has become of us from the training we had at KNUST, and KNUST, we are proud of what we've been able to achieve. And I think even in Africa, it's one of the top universities, and it's respected everywhere. Until recently, when I used to be the executive director of the Ghana Institution of Engineering, I quite remember when we went to Mauritius for the 100th anniversary of the Institution of Engineers Mauritius. And I said I was an alumni of KNUST. I mean, they were so thrilled because about 8 of their top engineers all studied in tech.
Okay.
So tech is an international institution. It's across the African continent. Whether you go to Kenya, I go to engineering conferences around the world, and they speak very highly of tech. And all of us, we have to do what we can to give back to the institution, to make sure that it maintains that level, that standard of respect that it has around the world.
Okay.
So that's one of the functions that I would like to really attend is the night with the captains of industry, and also the tech jams, the old school jam, you know. I remember when I was in the first year, I used to also do some DJing, you know. I was a disc jockey.
I see.
Yes. There was a nice, popular discotheque. These days I hear you call it club. We used to call it discotheque. You know, so I told someone I'm going to a discotheque. I'm old-fashioned. You should say you are going to club. In our time, it used to be called Hedonist. I don't know whether you ever heard of it.
No.
Yeah, Hedonist was around the Tech Junction, Agyei Junction. Maxima, these days they call the area Maxima. You know, and on Friday nights I would go and spin. You know, the DJ was a close friend, colleague of mine. We grew up in Kumasi together, and I love music. And I still have a beautiful playlist.
Okay.
And I'm very current.
I see.
Yeah, I'm very current with music.
You can give us free stuff. You can give us a free stuff.
I won't try that. I won't try that. But, you know, in those days, even the music industry has changed in Ghana. In those days, when you have parties on campus, we weren't playing, we used to call it funk, now you call it R&B, and everything has changed, you know. But at that time, we had the Commodores, Kool and the Gang. It was the period of the bands, Brass Construction, Silver Convention, you know. It wasn't individuals playing. I think it was Lionel Richie who broke away from Commodores and had a solo career, and then everybody followed it. You know, so those were our times, you know, on campus. Was beautiful. Delegation, BT Express, a lot of funky music. So I'm looking forward to that night. I mean, I hope they can give me 5 minutes to spin, and then I'll be able to play some of the music of the past, of the old. You know, the flashback is something that I'm really waiting on, and especially also the fun games. I hear there's going to be fun games, which we are calling the Tech Olympics. I'll see whether I can do the 100 meters.
Okay.
I'll play some five-a-side football, you know, so that's something also I'm looking up to.
Okay.
That should be fun.
Okay.
I mean, on a more serious note, I want us to talk about the Endowment Fund. I'm privileged to be chair of the Alumni Endowment Committee, which looks after the KNUST Alumni Endowment Fund.
Endowment Fund, okay.
And to set an example, a good example, I have paid my 7,000.
Okay.
I say that any senior person, the theme is 70 years KNUST. So we want people to pay multiples of 70. The young ones, the young students can pay 70 cedis, 700 cedis. So my son, who was also a civil engineer, who was also trained at Tech, he's paid 700. So I had to pay 7,000. My wife, who is a lecturer at Agyei, also schooled at Tech, she has paid her 7,000. So I'm calling on all of us. You know, I've got a lot of friends I've been speaking to also make good the money. We are targeting 1,000 people to pay 7,000. Some of the great institutions around the world, like Stanford and Harvard and Yale, they have become great because of the contributions of their alumni. People even bequeath part of their estate to these institutions. Major contributions like a $10 million, $20 million. You know, that's why they are so big. Their foundations are worth billions of dollars. And I think we should begin to cultivate that kind of interest for everyone who has passed through KNUST.
Okay.
And we want to use this occasion to leverage on that interest and activate that enthusiasm that is required for everybody to make a contribution back to the school that has made us who we are. And I'm sure that anyone who has passed through the walls of Tech would recognize the fact that Tech really has played a big role in who you are currently.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so for the purpose of those who do not know what the Endowment Fund is about, can you tell us the purpose of the fund and about maybe the objectives, which people are going to benefit from the fund?
In fact, we have a trifold a document that is available on the KNUST website. But in the main, in a summary, I can say that we have already been supporting needy students on campus.
Yeah, that's true.
We've been doing that.
Yeah.
This is the Alumni Endowment Fund. An endowment fund being set up by the alumni.
Okay.
It's different from the university's own endowment fund.
Okay.
But ours is for those products of KNUST to make a contribution back into our alma mater.
Right.
Okay? And so there are many things we want to do. We have plans. We already have the design of a hostel, an alumni hostel, to provide affordable residential facilities to students, you know, because sometimes a lot of them are hard pressed to try and go to the other hostels that are available around. So we want to make a contribution to in that sphere, and many other things that we want to do as an alumni, to essentially in the main to support the school. So our vision and our drive is tied to what the KNUST management is doing, and we are working in close contact with them. Okay, so whatever money we raise, they have ultimate responsibility together with the KNUST alumni itself on how the money is used.
Okay, that's beautiful.
That's. I mean, I think we want to encourage as many people to pay into the fund.
All right. Okay. So we see you have a beautiful collection of pictures over here. I believe there's a story to each and every one of them.
Yeah, I mean, interesting stories. The one in the middle is when I was press secretary to president. At that time, the presidency was at the castle. Okay. So you can see Christian Borg Castle behind me, and it's one of my press briefings. Okay. You know, that's that. This is at the White House, what we call the Blair House, which is opposite the White House. Okay. You can see the current president, then Foreign Minister Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and myself, so Foreign Minister and Press Secretary. We were accompanying President Akufo on a visit to the United States of America. And that picture is my last official function as Press Secretary to the President. That was the time of the visit of the then Japanese Prime Minister, Junichiro Koizumi. So you can see I was moderating the press conference of President Kufuor and Prime Minister Koizumi. And you can see the one down here. It's a very proud day in my life when my alma mater, my school in Fansipun, also recognized me, gave me a nice plaque. And I had the privilege of Kofi Annan, the late Kofi Annan, former Secretary General of the United Nations, who's also an old boy of Fansipun School, presenting me with the award. I was very happy that day. Well, as I told you earlier, I have 3 kids, one wife. Dr. Lorisha Agyepong, she's in there. She's a lecturer at the Ghana Institution of Journalism. You can see myself and my son, Kofi, who was at Tech, is also a civil engineer. And then the Kwame, who is also doing computer engineering in Boston. And then Mamiya, who is at the University of Massachusetts, doing community development and public health. So that's my family. Beautiful. It's a very small family.
Yeah.
Although I'm a traditional Ghanaian, I would have wished to have more kids. But these days, today's women, they don't want to have too many kids.
So I can see some oldies, the pictures over there. You have some oldies in here. So can you?
Well, this is this is a picture of me when I was young. These are my two siblings at the time. My father had a lot of kids, but at the time we were only three.
Okay.
So Joyce is the eldest. She's a banker. She just retired.
Okay.
And Stella is a medical biochemist. She's still in the UK.
Okay.
She's a medical biochemist at the Homerton Hospital. And myself, I love dressing, so you can see I have my bow tie.
That's
even
right.
in those days, so so that's me as a kid, and I quite remember in those days in Royal International School, the headmaster would pick me up and say, "This is the best dressed gentleman in the school."
See.
So it's a picture I'm very proud of.
Alright, okay. Engineer Kwabena Agyepong, it's been an honor and a great pleasure having this conversation with you. God richly bless you for your time.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I've also enjoyed it. And,
I have learned a lot. If I haven't learned anything, at least I know the 3S: service, sacrifice, and selflessness. God bless you so much.
thank you so much.